Bring to us your poetry from inspiration sought. Come join us with your images, your verses, words, and thought. From here, we'll share your balladry with those who do not know it. The platform's here for you to show the world that you're the poet.
Welcome to episode 21 of You're the Poet, the poetry podcast featuring you. I'm host Matt Burgio, and I'm here with co-host Phil Burgio. Phil, welcome.
Thank you.
Here at You're the Poet, our purpose is to share our love of poetry with the world and invite you to do the same. I want to start by saying thank you to all of our guests, and especially our listeners who have made You're the Poet possible. We hope you enjoy the podcast and the poetry that is shared here. Our featured guest for this episode of You're the Poet is Amos Mkubwa, who is joining us from Kenya. Amos, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
We're glad you could join us, and we look forward to your contribution to the episode. To start things off, I'm going to turn it over to Phil to share a classic poem with us today. Phil?
Yeah, this poem is called Old Ironside. That's the reference to the USS Constitution, a wooden three-mast, heavily armed warship the U.S. Navy was commissioned in 1797. It's got its name, Old Ironside, in the War of 1812 with the Battle of the Guerriere, earned its nickname Old Ironside because apparently some of the shots from the British warship just bounced off its wooden hull. This poem is based on an erroneous article that was written in a Boston paper that they were going to decommission the ship and scrap it. And the next day, Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. published this poem, Old Ironsides. Aye, tear her tattered ensign down, long has it waved on high, and maybe an eye has danced to see that banner in the sky. Beneath it's rung the battle shout and burst the cannon's roar. The meteor of the ocean air shall sweep the clouds no more. Her deck once red with heroes' blood, where knelt the vanquished foe, when winds were hurrying o'er the flood, and waves were white below. No more shall feel the victory tread, or know the conquered knee. The harpies of the shore have plucked the eagle of the sea. Oh, better that her shattered hull should sink beneath the wave. Her thunders shook the mighty deep, and there should be her grave. Nail it to the mast her holy flag, set every threadbare sail, and give her to the god of storms, the lightning and the gale. Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. was a poet, and he was pretty famous in his time. I like this poem because it shows the power of poetry. Even though it was an erroneous article, it got the public all incited with indignation about getting rid of this national treasure. I like to go with the truth versus the legend. I like to go with the legend that his poem had something to do with saving Old Ironside.
All right, well, thank you for sharing.
I like the poem because I go through it physically here. I can see that even the verses, the way the verses are bringing up the rhyme scheme in some verses here, I can see that it's a nice poem. It's a poem that has carried away some emotions about the American history. It's quite a lesson learned from that poem because I could not even imagine of having some information about the American history.
Okay. Yeah, I've always liked that poem, mainly for the same reason you guys have both talked about, so I don't have a whole lot to add, but it's one I was introduced to somewhere in high school literature classes, and I've always enjoyed it. Okay, from here I'm going to move to my poem for the episode. I'm just sharing another sonnet. I know we've done sonnets on this podcast before, and most people are familiar with that. This one is called the Nonsense Sonnet. It was a poem I wrote years ago as I was trying to do different forms, and it came to mind talking with James Bryant in our episode 19 about exploring different forms and doing different things. And a lot of my poetry at the time was in the ballad form. And so I wanted to work on some different forms. And so this was a shot at one of my early sonnets, the Nonsense Sonnet. So I undo my thoughts of old today and sit awake to write a poem that's new, or new at least to me who write so few in ways that differ from, or like to stray, from those I write in my poetic way. But now I see myself a poet true, who must research and see what he can do, to write his thoughts as old traditions say. And thus a poem as this sonnet is born, from deep within lost memories long worn. Wordsworth and Milton and Shakespeare and Frost, thrown all together with my style they're tossed. Now I've a pattern that fits with this form, I just need a style away from the norm. Matthew Burgio.
Kind of sums up your poetry mind.
Yeah, it's pretty much just straightforward, needing to explore different types of poetry. Just wanted to share that because I was thinking about it with our previous guest, James Bryant.
Actually, I've gone through this poem, and actually, I'm falling in love with this, the first and the second stanzas. If I can read, so I undo my thoughts of all today, and sit awake to write a poem that's new, or new at least to me, who writes so few. Wow, in ways that differ from all, like to stray from those I write in my poetic way. But now I see myself a poet true, who must research and see what he can do. Actually, from this verse, I can learn that when you do your writing, you just go wild into your thinking, into your inking of your poem. I can relate as a poet that it's true that when you go your own way in writing, and you can just do something that somebody has never done, then you feel like you're the only poet in the world that can do this form of poetry. And actually, I can see that even the words themselves, the truth is coming out from the verses. It's really a nice poem. I can tell you for free, it's a nice poem, and actually, I've enjoyed the lines also from the first verse. Congratulations, sir.
All right, well, thank you. And I like how you put that is when you can find a poetry that's your own style, you feel like you're the only poet in the world. I like that comment.
Sure, sure, sure.
All right, from there, we're going to turn it back over to Phil to share his poem for the episode. Phil?
Okay, this was called Backroads. I take the back roads when I roam, when I travel far from home, staying free from the highway race, a little bit further and a slower pace. But I don't mind, it relaxes me. There's so much out there for me to see. In the spring, things to be seen, how landscapes go from brown to green. Early flowers show their bloom to rid us all of winter's gloom. And in the summer morn, dew glistening from the beans and corn, a bumper crop from the farmer's hand, a bounty from the cherished land. Nature in autumn, when the colors glow, and to the countryside a wonderful show. And though the winter is dark and cold, it's still good to be on the road. Still it may snow and slow my pace, but I am in no hurried race. Other wonders I have seen, dense forests and plains of green, fields of wheat that go on and on, a great view of God's golden lawn. And all the creatures I have seen, the eagle, my favorite, have been. Antelope, wild horse, bison, and deer, a beauty that will cause a tear. Through small towns I love to drive and amaze how much they're still alive. The peaceful settings on a quiet street, the places where the past and the now meet. Take the back roads just like me and marvel at the things you see. Philip Burgio.
All right, thank you for sharing. I love that poem. I think mainly just from memories. You have always been a fan of the Backroads, and I've
Yes.
known that growing up. And there's a lot of times I take the Backroads just to see different things. I was reminded of a time where I wasn't planning to take Backroads, but coming back from one of the solar eclipses we had here a few years back, and all the main highways here in the U.S., the whole Midwest area where they were all blocked up and backed up because of the traffic for people that went and saw the solar eclipse where you can get the total eclipse. And I decided I was just going to flip on my GPS and take the fastest route. And it was a lot of back roads. But I saw a lot of cool things. I even found some new places to stop and kayak because I was taking my kayak with me. And I've just always liked doing the back roads and what you call rangering.
Ranger, yes.
As I was listening to the poem, actually, I felt like it's bringing some quite new energy into the verses, more so in the last verse. It's as if the poem is not going to end. It's a nice ending, but I felt like there are some more verses added into that last part because it doesn't seem like it's a poem that is going to end. And actually, it's a nice poem. I followed the lines and I was like, it's a nice poem.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, from there, we want to move to our guest section of the episode. Amos, you're the poet. Show us what you've got.
Welcome. My first poem is titled Wisdom. I know of a very important meal of any day, breakfast. The wisdom of the wise, the generation exterminator, the inspirers of the future African generation, that this is what we had to treasure to them. Knowledge is knowing, but not just knowing, but knowing what you say and where to say it. That's wisdom. May this message reach out our great great grandchildren, and they may know that their ancestors did. And the only place to find knowledge and wisdom is by reading books. Amos Mkubwa.
All right.
Yeah, actually, when I was writing this poem, I was transgressing through my thoughts that as writers, we are the carriers of the next generation. We want to need to share or to see. Because actually, when you have wisdom, the only way to transfer that wisdom to our younger generations or to the future generation is through actually put it down in books where they can be read and where they can be found. So I was just writing this poem to remind our young generation that this is history that is going to be transformed from the old age to even to the future generations. And actually, from even the Bible conception is that we could not know even about Jesus or about God, not if we didn't not have that Bible to tell us or to show us what happened in the past. So actually, as writers, we also need to pass that generation of writing into the next future generation and actually let them know that writing and wisdom is found in books and let them learn more and more from books. Yeah, I think that is all I can say about the poem.
No, and I think that's great, and it's a great concept. It even had me thinking about some of those apocalyptic movies or things like even the Sea, that air where it was post-apocalypse, and they're getting all their knowledge from finding books and learning about the past because they nothing was handed down and nobody knows anything. It says they find books, or you mentioned the Bible. I was thinking the Book of Eli, how they're looking for that surviving book. And your poem here, I thought was a great poem. I like that line, knowledge is knowing, but not just knowing, but knowing what you say and where to say it.
Profound. I like that.
Sure.
I thought that was a great line there.
Thank you.
No, I thought it was good. I like that idea about passing things down to the younger generation.
Sure.
Hey, you got another one for us?
Yeah, sure. The next one here I titled Who Cares? It's a short poem, and here it goes. Who cares about you? Who cares about tomorrow? I don't know who cares. But do you know who cares? You might be hungry, but who cares? Who cares about the nature of the environment? Who cares about planting trees? Plant trees and produce another generation. Amos Mkubwa. Actually, I wrote this poem during the evening, and actually, I was in the farm. I was thinking that when you are alone as a poet, that is the best time to connect with everything, to connect with the nature, to connect with even God, to connect with yourself and knowingly that who you are and what you're gonna be, what you wanna do, and that is the best time. I feel like the best time in my life is when I'm spending my time with myself alone. The nature of the day triggered this poem, and I was thinking that you might have somebody that you know you are in trouble, but there is nobody who cares. This was triggered even more from the Kenyan government because during that day actually I was very down because what the government does, and when you think about the common Kenyan citizen, we are suffering quite a lot, but the government doesn't even see that the common Kenyan citizen is suffering. We are suffering from high taxes, over taxation, and a lot of problems are facing Kenyans. And actually, I was thinking that you might be to a hospital bed and some people are partying somewhere else. So maybe nobody cares about your situation. Nobody cares about you. It's you to care about yourself. And actually, that is what triggered me to come up with that short poem about who cares.
Yeah, I like that. Kind of reminds me, I was tying it together from your first poem, Wisdom, your final line there, the plant trees and produce another generation. That if you're going to be the one that cares, that, the guy who plants the tree, that's the wisdom of knowing that he might not get to enjoy its shade or its fruit, but that it's there for future generations. And it reminded me of that concept from your wisdom poem with the book.
There's a saying here that you plant berries for yourself, fruit trees for your children, and nut trees for your grandchildren. You may not see it, but it'll be there in the future.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. So I wanted to ask now at this point, is there anything you wanted to promote? You got anything going on in the poetry world or other projects going on or things that you wanted to talk about? Or
Maybe I can now have my time to just highlight some few projects I'm doing, some few things we're doing in the industry of poetry and actually creativity. Personally, I'm a writer, I'm a DJ, I'm an MC, I'm an actor. And actually, I can be able to balance all these talents that are given point of life. I can testify to the world that talent is great. Talent will take you to places. Talent is the best thing that God gave to man. And actually, we need to use that talent. We need to use our talents very nice. The most important thing in life is when you see somebody smiling on your credit. So that when you help somebody grow, I think for me, it's the best thing I want to say in the world. Makes me go deep down into the books of history in assisting fellow human beings grow, maybe in talent wise and actually in anything they want to be. Because if I got that opportunity to help you, I don't see the reason why I should not help you because that is what God wants us to do. We actually need to love each other and make sure that we help one another because actually you will need your friend, you will need your neighbor, you will need somebody to help you in something so that you can actually achieve your dreams and achieve your targets. So actually what I do is I am a mentor. I mentor young poets, young talents. Currently, I've mentored around 15 young boys and girls who are in primary school and secondary school. I've mentored them to be writers, to be actors, to be journalists. This is anthology called Let Me Breathe 1. Let Me Breathe 2. It talks about climate change and its effects. There are two ladies who are very young girls there. They have mentored these young girls to become climate activists. Actually, I've mentored them to become young poets and poetesses. I have also another one here. This is an international anthology of poems. It's also an anthology of poems about climate change. You can see it consists of around 11 writers from across the world. I feel happy when I mentor young girls and boys into this industry because I know as I grew up, I did not have anybody to tell me that this is the right direction you should take into the publishing industry or into the writing industry. I would like to mention that as a writer, as an international writer, and a professional writer, I can tell these young girls that talent will take them to places. Talent is amazing. Talent will make you somebody who is respectable in the community and even in the whole world. And if they wanna use their talent well, it will pay them.
good.
Come next year, March 2025. We are planning a very big event, a very broad event that will include all these young talents from the youngest talent we have ever mentored, who is around 10 years now, to the oldest talents we've associated with. It will be a very big, broad event. It will host all the talents. It will have a road show. It will be a whole week, whereby the climax will be on the 21st of March when we will be celebrating World Poetry Day. It will be a very, very big event, and we wish to welcome or to invite all other guests. Anybody who will wish to come and celebrate with us on that World Poetry Day, which is being celebrated on 21st March of every year, so that we can celebrate these young talents. That is the only project I can say I have. For now, I'm planning for that very mega big event. We will be launching three anthologies, the one for World Poetry Day. Then we are also compiling another anthology that will be launched on the 22nd of March. It will be a World Water Day. So we are compiling another anthology about water because water is a very essential aspect in our lives and in the lives of everybody, every plant and everyone. So we've dedicated ourselves to do some poetry about World Water Day. And on 20th of March, we will be celebrating also International Happiness Day. We will be compiling another anthology about that happiness day. That is actually happiness is the most important thing because when you are happy, that means that you're having some peace of mind. Peace of mind is the most important thing in somebody's life. And if you don't have peace of mind, then you are not happy, then there is a mess actually in you and in your neighborhood, and it might be posing a threat to even your health and even to other people. So actually, we said that we're gonna celebrate those 3 days. They are international days, and we wish to invite all writers or poets, everyone else. If you will not get the opportunity to come to Kenya, we will host it online. We will stream online. We invite everybody into that event. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, if you can share any of those links, just send them to me through email. And we'll put up some links for where people can find those anthologies and stuff.
Amos, you got another one for us?
But yeah, let's try to get that souvenir poem in here.
It goes. The cold-hearted bearers of the Souvenir, the plight against insanity, the power that will overrule the world, fiction of the entire universe. What a wow! A talent, civic voice for the voiceless, the profound activists of the environment, the seers of the future, masterminds of the ecological system, the emblem of the golden hearts, sojourned in the soil of blacks. The hills and Mother Nature never left them apart. Amos Mkubwa.
All right, thank you for sharing. Anything else you want to say on that poem?
I wrote this poem when I was thinking about what we can do about talent. So talent is going to be a souvenir to our future generations. I've mentored my young daughter who is 11 years old. She is going to grade 6 next year. Mentoring that talent has been the best thing I've ever enjoyed in life, because when I know that I've mentored my young daughter, that is why I called it as a souvenir, because I've left some permanent mark in somebody's life.
Good point.
Yeah, I like that.
It's a good
idea.
concept.
All right, moving on from there, I have a little feedback for this episode. This is from Mariah S. about episode 19 with James Bryant. Mariah writes, "Oh my gosh, James, he needs a big hug too. I love how vulnerable he is, and even though he's hard on himself, he keeps going and trying new things." Heart emoji. What a great poet. I love that your dad encourages him to keep writing. I agree, he did great. So thank you for Mariah, as always, with the feedback. As we wrap things up, we want to let our listeners know that we are grateful that you've taken the time to tune in. We hope you're enjoying the poetry shared here, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with others. Now that the Year of the Poet community is expanding at a rapid rate, we have set up a patron site for those who would like to show their support for Year of the Poet. You can find us on buymeacoffee.com/yearofthepoet. Thank you for your support as we continue to grow. If you've written any poetry and you want to share it here, whether you just have an interest in poetry, consider yourself an amateur poet, or are a professional poet with published works, contact us to be a guest on a future episode. Please check out the website at www.you'rethepoet.com. Follow us on Facebook for updates and info, and send us an email to host@you'rethepoet.com for feedback or questions about the podcast and how to be our next guest. Until next time, Phil, thanks for joining us.
Anytime. I really enjoy this.
Amos, thanks for being our guest.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Goodbye.